The New World Aeternum Dev update has me incredibly excited for the future of New World Aeternum, so I want to give my thoughts about it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends, comment your thoughts down below. So we have multiple ways this breaks down. There's in development, there's in exploration, and then there's what's actually going to be happening next season. I'm not going to talk too much about this, one, because I'm not super interested, but also because, yeah, like, this is happening, it's already gonna be a thing. I want to see what the future long-term plans for New World look like. Seasonal world with PvP, I don't really care about it. Actually, probably a good thing, because if all the PvPers just go over there and stop bothering the normal people, then maybe the game just feels a lot better. New OPR map. I play some OPR if I just want to grind out some PvP experience. So maybe it's like nice and not miserable and you can play it, and then OPR is a little better, but I don't really care too much about it. Now, Mutation 3 matchmaking. That's kind of spicy, but with all the other content coming in the game with just natural gear score progression, hopefully it just becomes doable. You get random people, you do a Mutation 3, you get better gear easier, less friction into endgame content. That's like the biggest thing the game needs, and there's a lot of that in this update. New daily solo trials. This, I'm not really sure about. I guess it helps the more, like, average middle player that still somehow can't make it to the end game, because once you get, like, 700 or high gear score everything, it's like, no, I want to be running mutations, I want to be farming different kinds of artifacts, I want to be getting ready for raids. Solo trials do nothing to progress that, unless they find a way to actually, like, pump tons of resources, like give a lot of coin every day for doing your 3 solo trials. Make it like a 500 or 1k bonus, because the time spent there, we're just better off like crafting, refining, or again trying other runs, where you're just going to make more money for doing anything but a solo trial. Same thing for dark matter, same thing for any other kind of crafting rewards. To make solo worth it, the rewards actually have to be insane. Pretty much like, oh, if I do my daily solo thing, that's as good as if I just had a super cracked out group and I was running content with them. So I think like if they make that really nice, yeah, it's worth it. Until then, not really. Combat balance updates every season. I don't like that. I feel like it needs to be twice a season just to keep the game interesting. And also a lot of combat things, they just get more and more annoying as time goes on. It's like, man, this needed a nerf since launch, and now we have to wait until the next season. And if it doesn't get touched on the season, well, hopefully it gets addressed another 2 months from now. So I think like combat balance needs to be a bit more aggressive and twice as frequent when it comes to that. New artifacts and perks. The new perks are a big one they talked about in the video update, because they went, yeah, nothing's stopping us from having 10 perks for every ability. So I would like to see a lot of perks just to give a lot of diversity and stuff into it. New artifacts. There's an earring coming, so maybe an incentive to not only run the Blood Drinker is pretty cool. And then, yeah, any kind of extra farm for the end game. You run your artifacts, GG easy, good luck, have fun. Maybe it's good, and maybe it's worth, like, investing into a different build. And then seasonal events, well, yeah, that's always guaranteed and always something that's going to be happening. So that's going to be something. They did talk about in the update, Legacy of Crassus giving rewards beyond 700 gear score. I like that. Even if it caps out at 710 gear score, it's like, good. More gear that's accessible for players so they can finally complete a raid or something like that, or make it to where the Mutation 3 expeditions are going to be easier to accomplish, and then you have a lot of extra crazy farming and incentive to play the hyper end game by getting more players there. The Halloween update with the non-tradable schematics or blueprints, that didn't feel great, where it's like, okay, so now everyone's posting their Night Veil stuff on the market for like 15, 20k because it's high gear score, and I don't care to craft it because it's expensive. So yeah, we got 7 powerful weapons coming in. Hopefully that does something interesting to the game. Would like a non-ranged Void Gauntlet. That could be cool. And then going back to the solo trials, it seems like the thing about solo trials is you do it for the experience and the story and not the rewards. I don't care about getting pushed to my limits if I don't get anything for it. But what I'm most interested in talking about, and the reason why I'm making this video, is because of the in-development stuff. So, new seasonal worlds. I see people hating on it because they're like, oh, the devs are going to be wasting development time on seasonal world resources they're just going to get reset that no one's going to engage with. I think that kind of misses the mark. Like, this isn't for me. But I do think something that keeps players invested between updates, where someone crushes all the updates they talked about in the dev update, like, oh yeah, they have a 20-minute speedrun on Gorgon now, so they have to make the next raid harder. I hate hearing things like that, but yeah, like large companies and hyper sweaty in-game players that are super coordinated, they blitz through all the content, and now there's nothing for them to do. So if they just go and hang out in Seasonal World, they're more likely to come back, and then the player base stays healthier for longer by distracting players between updates. So I think that's a good thing. Not for me, but if you're not a weirdo or an idiot, it's actually a good thing for the game. Actually, something that occurred to me after recording the video is the endgame progression improvements with cross-character progression, including seasonal worlds. That actually gives a lot of incentive to play seasonal worlds, especially if you're burned out, like, I don't have anything to do in New World, but maybe I could run it back on a seasonal world. Also, we've seen things like the seasons in RuneScape be incredibly successful. Same thing for World of Warcraft. So some wacky, overbuffed, hyper-accelerated fresh start that gives you progression into your main character, actually, yes. Territory system improvements is interesting, and they talk more about it in the video, but they want to have a reputation system to actually have incentive to go out to other territories, and that sounds really awesome. Where the reputation is going to be meaningful for that area to incentivize, hey, if you want the perks offered here or the different rewards available in this territory, then you can find a way to hyper grind it there instead of just staying in, oh, the new best area or the new best territory and then forsake the rest of the game. And then we have in-game progression, and of course this is what everyone cares about. This is also how I'm feeling, where I was happy to get back into Aeternum, I was happy for the fresh start world. I feel like there were some problems though, that without a watermarking system, well, you just instantly go to 700 gear score on the day 1, day 2 elite chest runs, and then you can power through all the content, a couple mutations, everyone's doing raids, and despite it being like fresh start with all these updates on Aeternum, a month and a half and now you're maxed. And depending on the systems that you do and don't engage with, that, oh, over 95% of players still struggle with Gorgon and haven't completed a raid. So if you've actually completed a raid and you just are looking to farm artifacts, or you want to do a raid but you don't have like an established hardcore group, it's impossible to do any of that. I still can't get my Azoth conductors even though I have a Gorgon raid clear. Pugs are impossible, but a Gorgon raid group doesn't want you just join in for Echidna and then drop out while they're trying to run the entire thing. So that makes it weird. They also talked about how, yeah, they want you to have more than just do your coconut, do a mutation, do some other things, get lost in the infinite amount of dailies that are not as rewarding as they should be, and then it just doesn't feel satisfying. So what I really liked is they want to make it to where you can play how you want to play, and then find all the rewards inside the game, which I think the game is really good at doing right now, but it could feel better once you hit like a really hard wall inside of the game. That I had a lot of fun going, well, I'm never going to Cutlass Keys, that's just a PvP zone, I don't care about PvP, and there's going to be no point for me doing it, to going, oh, wait a second, you can farm doubloons PvE, and I can comfortably go out and grab my coconut, maybe snipe some kills with my build, and then do some farming in the PvP zone as well. The elite area, if I'm going to do an elite chest run, I'm not going like full-on world tour. If I see Cutlass Keys and I haven't done anything for the day, that's just a good place to spend 20 minutes. I did my video about getting carried in a group raid, and then it upped my confidence for clearing Gorgon. So I think another thing that the devs need to do that other games have implemented is either like an easier mode with lessened rewards just so you can learn the mechanics and learn it, and then that makes it easier to clear, or you make like a super challenge mode that's just there for the prestige. That raid shouldn't be harder just because some group did a 20-30 minute speed run. You give them a difficulty modifier for leaderboards and cosmetics, and then you make the base raid easier. That way, 90% of the player base can actually accomplish things in the endgame. And then I've hit the point where I'm blitzing mutations to farm whatever I'm in the mood for that day or that week, which I wasn't doing before the Aeternum update with my max character on legacy servers. So I think the being able to play however you want, it's there, but it doesn't take you all the way to the end. It takes you a good amount there, and then you have to, then like you're forced into doing some of the other uncomfortable things, and if you don't have a way of breaching into that, well then the game's impossible. Or like that content breach is impossible. They also talked about wraparound experience, and that goes into the territory system improvements, because, oh, you hit max level, well, all those quests littering the map do nothing for you, especially if they don't have good enough rewards. So going to a territory, getting reputation that gives you different kind of rewards, and then incentivizes other experience and virtual levels, yes, that give me infinite gameplay loops that make me accomplish something. The problem is, like, these cool gameplay loops I love, eventually they cap out, and you can't get any stronger until you hit the next tier, but then you can't accomplish it. I know it's going to sound weird of me to say this, but that was the problem I had with Realm of the Mad God. That I got to the point where I have all the cool gear I want. I have multiple gear sets. I have crafting. I can make good amounts of progression. I've done some exaltations. But I feel like I shouldn't be forced to joining a Discord group and then having to change how I play the game just to clear Oryx 3, which I still haven't done despite 1,000 hours in the game. I love the Forge and the enchanting system and all the events that go on in Realm of the Mad God, but even though I like hard farm that stuff, I can't find enough power to buy some comfort to be able to clear the hardest content in the game. I feel like it's fair if there's a grind that's like 10 times slower to do, but if you get through it, you can get 90% of the power of accomplishing like the hyper endgame. Going back to Realm of the Mad God, I don't like that I can't craft the Oryx or like the Exaltation dungeon gear, even though I could have like tons of resources. I don't care if it takes 5 times more to craft it without an Oryx token. I just wish I could craft it so I can feel that power. I can achieve it without being forced into the only way of obtaining it by clearing Oryx 3 or clearing the Shatters. I didn't complete the Void until I did the nerfed version of the Void, but that gave me all of the Void rewards. Therefore, I was actually able to clear a regular Void eventually. They didn't really do that with like the Shatters rehearsals and like the nerfed Oryx 3 because, oh, it just ended up still being impossible. So I kind of want to see that for whatever game I play. And that brings me to the biggest, most thing I'm excited for, and that's the Umbral Shards V2. That this has me excited because that's what I liked about the old system when we had the Umbral Shards where, okay, you can do dailies, you can grind, you can do weeklies, you can accumulate Umbral Shards, and if you can't do a mutation 9 or 10 or whatever it was, or you don't have the group and everything's too expensive, you can still find a piece of gear that's over 600. You get like your 590 or 600, and then you can slowly upgrade it to then gain that power to now make that content achievable. Or it provides you alternative, slower gameplay loops that are more comfortable to get you on the same amount of power or slightly less, to where I'm fine with that because I know I didn't earn it by actually completing enough raids to be total 725. But if I can Umbral to 720, cool. Let me do that. I don't really do invasions. Maybe invasion rework, and also being able to queue for things because they have invasion modes with matchmaking. There we go. I'll get into that. I don't like the friction of signing up and getting drafted and all that stuff. Also the invasion difficulty. So like an invasion rework, that could be one of those things where, oh, an invasion's coming up. I can queue for it right now. Sure, I'll do it. And then if the rewards are good, it really just needs like to be, the rewards need to be satisfying enough for either the friction of joining it or the frustration of competing with it in pugs, or also if it's just fun. If it's actually like an engaging enough mode, then it doesn't need to have over-buffed rewards to compensate for it. I don't find solo trials fun, because like I said, I'm not in it for the challenge, I'm in it for the rewards. So, low rewards on an unsatisfying mode for me, even though it's like supposed to be something for solo players, which is what I am, that misses the mark. So it's like, I will do the grunt work for crazy rewards, or I'll play for good rewards. Like, they at least have to be good if it's fun and frictionless, which is also why the matchmaking for mutations and the activities feed more accessible compared to legacy servers and when Rise of Angry Earth came out. PvP modes, whatever, mode maps, whatever. The in-game rewards and system improvements, that goes back to what they were talking about. Invasions. Global storage is interesting because, yeah, it mostly just kind of feels like, oh, I have to go to this tab, and I have to do that, and then I move it over anyways. So the storage system just kind of goes back to when the game came out over 3 years ago, and trade wasn't possible, where you couldn't trade between territories unless the trading post was upgraded enough, and they also, like, shared the same faction. So finding the prices of things and running over to a place to get it, with Azoth costs being higher, and then scaling with your encumbrance incredibly aggressively. Like, it was a completely different game. And then they just kind of made it to where, oh yeah, you can view and then move your storage around. But then you don't have total global storage. So it's like, I have the item. It will take me 10 extra seconds to move those items around. Just let me have it global so I don't have to juggle and find where all those things are. Now, the in-exploration isn't as important to me because all the other stuff is so good. It's like, oh, that's what I want. If all this in-development stuff comes out by summer, which seems very ambitious, but I mean, if they're actually like really, that's how they can prove it, where they get the relaunch into summer as well, and then player count spikes to 100,000 because all the streamers are playing it. It turns out to be the best game ever, and then people are sticking in, and then there's no player turnover because the in-game systems are so good. That's the best case scenario. And then with all this other stuff going on, yeah, I don't need any more content for another year, so I'm not going to be entitled and bratty and be like, I need to see this stuff now. And the new weapons, I'm expecting a new weapon before a year from now to come out. Now, the devs said nothing about the new weapons, so I don't even know what to think. What is the weapon type? What class does it do? What's the gameplay potentially possibly going to be like? Really, the only thing, and it's also kind of weird because, oh, we had the flail, a focus weapon, then we had the void gauntlet, a focus weapon compared to the launch weapons. But we still need more focus weapons because that can also do some inter-weapon classes and builds that you can do. But the biggest thing I want to see is and another problem with the flail is that's supposed to be like kind of healery supportive-y. Even the void gauntlet has that because that's the focus class. But I want to see a focus weapon that replaces the life staff or gives you the opportunity to be a dedicated healer and not be forced to use a life staff if you want to queue as a healer in mutations. Or something that combos to where if you go healer, cleric, flail, then you can do this new focus weapon, still get a lot of scaling on it, and then still be as efficient of a healer as the life staff. And that also kind of goes into like the new perks where, oh, life staff gameplay changes a lot if you give it a lot more perks as well. So I'm not excited about this. Like, all right, whatever happens, and maybe it does something cool. Ranked PvP. They didn't talk about this, and this is actually like the thing I'm most excited about from the in exploration. And maybe a year and a half from now, I'm like, yo, I'm tired. I'm burned out on this game. It kind of sucks. And then procedural expeditions with extraction. That sounds awesome. Where you have like a roguelike kind of element where you go in and the enemies keep getting harder and harder, and you have to determine like, whew, we barely got through it. Do we just call it here at the end of this level, at the end of this wave of enemies, and we leave with all of our rewards, or do we push harder for the 720, 735 gear score item? Infinite replayability endgame loops is what I want. That is the gamertism that must be tickled. Numbers go up when I play games. Okay, so I'm not completely unexcited about the in exploration. I'm just not terminally online entitled weirdo, so I can go, cool. If that's 2 years from now, whenever this drops, I'm coming back to the game, regardless of the state of the game. I can wait. It's cool. New raid, and then, oh wait, raid difficulty levels. That's like so far off that who knows what the game state's going to be. PvE modes. I mean, like we have trials, and we have mutations, and we have raids. So I don't even know the point of that. Territory system overhaul, so they keep talking about that. Exploration and collection systems. Zone up levels, new zone that's apparently like in development enough to where they're talking about like, yo, I've seen those assets and it's crazy. So this could actually be a year from now, like the holiday November 2025 update, and we're actually getting all this stuff. So that means the in development is slated for the summer, and it's going to be an actively updated game, and it holds several 100,000 players, which then gives the devs more resources to develop. So yeah, they're always working on the in-game rewards and systems. That's kind of cool. I don't care about influence and whatever. All instance content matchmaking. Cool, maybe I can get my Azoth conductors a year from now. And the way they sold the idea of a company hall, it's kind of cool because it's effectively like having your own mini territory and influences for your company. So that'd actually be like fun to contribute to and do stuff like that. I don't know how far it gets and how like complex the system's going to be. They really talked about how, oh yeah, you know, only the 7 biggest companies that are constantly at war get to have influence over the territory. If you have a company, there's really nothing for your company to do. There's no benefit to being in a company besides saying that you're in a company. Any kind of coordination or grouping or hanging out with your friends, that's happening in Discord, not your company, and there's nothing for your company to accomplish or contribute to. And maybe it's just like storage for your extra wealthy friends, but now like who's hitting gold cap if you're not buying territories and shit. So yeah, like this could get cool and open up some more like grinding and gameplay loops and incentives to actually have a company, join a company, become friends with the people inside of your company, and then grow as a stronger group of players. I'm excited for all this, and those are my thoughts about it. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.